Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Hi, welcome to the grammar requested instructional video on how this whole shebang works. I'm going to talk about how Dante connects to the AV network, how it works up there, and how I get all these mics down here for the orchestra. So the first step is on the actual box down here. There are 16 inputs. Now the top row is labeled the primary and the second row is the secondary. I'm not using the second row because up at the soundboard we're only plugged into the primary on the Dante card. All these 8 mics go out to this whole grid out here of all these microphones. They're all labeled. I think that's very helpful. You don't have to do it, but it definitely helps you keep track of what's where and label which instruments. Then these 4 outputs right here are all connected to 4 monitors. I have one over there, 2 right there, and 1 over there. Those can be controlled by Mr. Hilla while they're playing with these 4 channels right here, because those speakers have output XLR. Yeah. No. These XLR go into the board here, and then these control the volume of the monitors, and then it comes back out of the board into the 4 monitors. And that's all done right here. You just select your channel, go to inputs, and make sure it's input patch to mic 1 and direct out patch to output 1. That's how everything down here works, besides the Dante box just being plugged in just like any normal appliance into the wall right there. It has an Ethernet connection that runs down to the side down here that goes into the AV network slot. And then these 4 extra microphones are because we don't have that second row in the box, so they run to 4 more microphones to get 12 total. Let me get my breath. The reason there's only 12 of them, we could theoretically do more, but the reason there's only 12 is because we have a total of 40 channels with this system. 24 of those are the wireless microphones, 4 of them are the pencil microphones that are hanging down from the ceiling, and then the other 12 are these microphones. Now we're going to go up to the soundboard and find out why this works.
Go.
Alright, now we're up at the soundboard. We're going to find all the software stuff and how it talks to Dante down there. So the first, most important thing that people forget all the time is this Ethernet cable. This, I have it kind of organized a weird way. It can be organized a different way if you want it. But it goes down and around, up through a hole over there that you can't really see because there's a lot of stuff blocking it. But it's okay. It comes up here and it plugs in here. The rest of this white cord plugs into Dante in the back of the board. It's a big red card, you can't miss it. This blue one plugs into the network slot in the back of the board. And this black one plugs into, where the hell does it plug into? That's right, it goes all the way over there, around, into right here. And this is the second AV network slot. That's how they're talking to each other. Now, normally you wouldn't do that. We just have to right now because this cord is broken. But normally this cord will replace that dark black cord that goes in there. So remember that it's labeled as wireless workbench because that's what we mainly use it for, but it also helps with Dante. So on the computer, once you plug the Ethernet in, you'll open up this thing called Dante Controller. You can find it just by hitting the search and just typing in Dante, and it'll pop as the first thing. And what this lets you do is tell the board what you want to go where. So if we open this up, transmitters are up here and receivers are down here. So right now, this is the board transmitting, so sending signal like an output, and then this is the Dante box receiving like an input, whatever the board is transmitting it. You just click to make these little connections. I'm not going to click because I don't want to break it. But you just click, and then it'll wait for a second, and then it will give you a check if it worked. I gotta catch my breath again. Sorry, I got really bad lungs. So, what these 4 are is the 4 monitors. It's just a 1-to-1 patch, and we'll get to that on the soundboard in a second. But that's just how you connect those 4 monitors, and then if you close that and come back up here, now it's the board that's receiving and the box that's transmitting, because the box is transmitting that it's getting input from 8 different microphones, and the board is receiving that. So here's the 8 different microphones. They're patched 1-to-1 here and on the board, and even though it's like the later half of the 40 channels that we own, it can still be patched like this, and I'll tell you why once we get to the soundboard. Now there's another application that's very important for Dante, and it's called Dante preamp control. Same thing to find this one, you'll just go up to the search and then you'll type in DT preamp control, not Dante, type in DT because it's abbreviated and it won't show up if you put in Dante. So here are the first 8 microphones. This is basically a one-to-one with the box. Exactly what you see here is exactly what you get in the box. These 48 volts are phantom power. This is what compressor mics need to work. Some of the other compressor mics, which are SM57s, don't need it. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why. I think it's just because the box knows and it tells them to take phantom power. But these other ones were compressor microphones given to us by Mr. Hilla, and these ones do absolutely need phantom power to work. So if you ever see signal not popping up on the soundboard, this is most likely why. And you can adjust your gain from here to whatever you want. You can also just type it in the box here, and you can apply a pad and, of course, phantom power. If anybody ever forgets, there's also a wireless workbench on here, which will tell you all the battery levels of all the microphones, but I'm sure Grummer will never forget that. Right, Grummer? Anyways, that's all for the computer. Now we're going to move to the soundboard. Alright, so now we're at the actual soundboard part of it, the most important part. This is where you'll patch what you told the computer on there to what the box is getting over there. So to do that, real simple, come over to I/O, stands for input, output, and then come up here to I/O port. It says Dante. Make sure on this left column you're on inputs, input channel. That's the most important part that I often forget. And this is how you patch those 8. Remember on the preamp control, not on the preamp, on the Dante controller, we patch them one-to-one, so we're gonna do the same thing here. Patch the first microphone, see after the pencil microphones, patch the first one to the first input, second one to the second, and all the way down. And that's just, it really is just that simple. If it gets harder than that, you're doing something wrong, I promise. Then for the other 4 microphones that we have down there, it's the same thing. Come over to S-Link, because that's the house system, not Dante. And just patch them to these 4. We'll also go over to the patch bay later to discuss how they're patched over there. But whatever you see over there will correlate with right here. So then down here, if you look, these 8 are our Dante channels, and then these 4 are the S-Link channels. You can hold view and you'll see input 29. They start at 29 because we have the 24 normal wireless and then the 4 hanging microphones that go up to 28, and they start at 29 all the way through 40. So if you go into the processing of one of these, you'll see that you're blocked from accessing the phantom power, the pad, and the gain, and that's because you do them on preamp controller. You cannot adjust the phantom power or put a pad on it without preamp control. You can adjust the gain with this knob here, but even then it's still an individual gain over there, so I recommend doing it over there first, because on the board it's patched in this weird way with the gain, and then if you go over to one of the actual S-Link microphones, you'll see that the gain is how you'd expect it to be. With, can you see it? Here, look right here. Right there, 32 decibels, just what you'd think. And this does also apply for the other 4. You don't have to use any kind of computer program to adjust the gain or the phantom power or the pad. You can just do it yourself here. But always make sure that when you're running it just through S-Link, you do have to apply phantom power. You can't do it automatically. Another useful thing to know might be right here, source select. If this is messed up, then you don't have to go looking in the I/O section for it. You can just look right here. It always has to be one-to-one, so the first microphone, I/O port 1, second microphone, I/O port 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Makes a good amount of sense. You just pick your source, and then pick your number by using this little knob, and it's just that easy. So now we'll go to the last part. We're gonna go over to the patch bay, and that'll be the end. Okay, here's the last part. I'll show the pencil mics too, just in case anybody forgets. So if you look, right here it says grid. These are the 4 pencil microphones that I'm using. Up there in the grid, they're all labeled on their box, and you just have to come down here and make sure it's all patched correctly. Sorry, it's not those 2, it's these 2. These ones are nothing. So it's these 2 here and these 2 here. This one is also labeled catwalk normalized, but the numbers match up. You can also check this little code right here. It's really small, but it's just underneath it, and that code will match up with whatever you're plugging into. And that comes back over here into 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's what I have patched over on the board in the S-Link. So then, for the other 4 microphones that are down in the pit, you'll just come over here to orc pit. These are the 4 slots. There's only 4 of them because there's only 4 down there. And then over here, and way down here, is these 4. You don't have to use these 4, but I found them the most convenient because it's the last 4 of our actual microphones and channels that we have. And so you just patch that directly. And again, the codes will match up. If it's not working, you're just not plugging it far enough in.